Good Lord. What a moron. What a moron. He doesn't even realize how stupid he is. So don't tell me this guy's smart. He's not. He's an authoritarian thug, and he's a blithering idiot. You could be both of those things at the same time, and this buffoon is. Okay, let's move on from him to this CNN panel, this nightly CNN panel with host Abby Phillip. I never watch it. I can't stomach it, but I do see a lot of clips. And I have two for you. One from some annoying, screeching woman. I don't know who this person is. She's clearly not a smart woman. But why don't I go ahead and just, no more setup. Let me just play this. I'm sorry if this makes your blood boil, but hey, gotta understand what's going on, what these morons who are trying to destroy the country are saying. Listen to this woman.
Because they're not citizens. We do not owe them the same thing.
Wait, okay.
It has to mean something to be an American.
Batia, hold on a second. I get the passion, but I really think it's important.
Is that passion or is that psychopathy? Let's listen again.
Citizens, we do not owe them the same thing.
They are not citizens. We do not owe them the same thing.
Because they're not citizens. We do not owe them the same thing. It has to mean something to be an American.
Batia, hold on a second. I get the passion, but I really think it's important to really scrutinize what you just said. The idea that people do not have the right to the processes of the law just because they are not citizens is your opinion, but that is not how the law works. You know that, right?
The president has the right to deport people.
Okay, answer my question. You understand that that is not how the law works, that it is not true that just because your citizenship status does not mean that you do not get the same rights to legal process as everybody else in this country.
Abby, I think the country is. I think that the country. I'm answering your question. I am answering your very specific question.
Okay.
I think the country right now is very split. In fact, I just saw a poll yesterday from WIC, which was put out by 2A. The country is split almost 50-50. On this exact question. How much due process, how much of our investment and our money and our courts and our time do we owe people who committed a felony as their first act on U.S. soil? The United States of America, the people of this country are currently asking themselves that question every single day.
So what? Okay. The opinion.
And guess who's winning on it? It's Trump.
I think that
Trump is still beating the Democrats on immigration. So he's winning this argument.
I just want people to understand that your opinion about this, honestly, the opinion of half of the United States about this is totally fine and valid. But the question...
Okay, let me stop that. Okay, I wanted to get to that point because I could not possibly disagree more with this, with what Abby Phillip is saying here. Their opinion on this is not perfectly fine and valid or whatever the hell she said. You can have whatever opinion you want, but that doesn't make it a valid opinion just because it's your opinion. Facts are facts. And this question about who is entitled to due process in this country was settled well over 200 years ago. It's not debatable. In fact, it's in clear black and white. Why don't we look at it, shall we? Because this screeching hyena of a woman is saying here is that only American citizens are entitled to due process rights. If you're here illegally, or if Donald Trump just says you're here illegally, you have no right to any due process at all. You have no constitutional rights. We don't have to give you a hearing at all. If you don't even have the most basic due process, how can you even challenge the government's contention that you're even the right person? All Trump has to do is say you're an illegal alien and you never get into court. If he says you're here illegally, according to this woman and half of America, according to her, then you don't even have a right to challenge your arrest, to challenge your detention. So all Trump has to do is say you are illegal. So there's no way for an American citizen to even challenge their detention. If Trump, you lose all constitutional rights in this country if Trump just says you're here illegally. That's all he has to do, because this woman and 50% of the American people would not even give you a hearing to say, hey, you got the wrong person. Here's my birth certificate. I've been here my whole life. I'm a citizen. No, you don't even get to say that. Trump says you're here illegally, that's it. Off to the concentration camp in El Salvador for you. But why don't we just take a look? Because all these people who wrap themselves in the American flag and pretend to be constitutionalists, let's take a look at the Constitution. Here is the Fifth Amendment to the United States. So let's go to this question of who is entitled to due process. Here, let's not read this whole thing because there's a lot of things in this, but let's just read the relevant part. So it begins, no person shall be held to answer, blah, blah, blah. And then you drop down here, nor shall be, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So let's read it. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. No person. Doesn't say no American citizen, no person. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. So that means every person who the government seeks to deprive of life, liberty, or property is entitled to due process of law under our Constitution. Every person. That would include people who are not here legally. They are entitled to due process. How about this one? Because that's not the only place it says something like that. How about the 14th Amendment? Now, the 14th Amendment, just so you know, the 14th Amendment obviously came later, and this is one of the post-Civil War amendments. And one of the major purposes of these amendments was of the 14th Amendment was to ensure that the states did not violate people's United States federal constitutional rights. Here in Section 1, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Okay? Nor deny to any person, just to finish out the paragraph, nor to deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Doesn't say anything about citizens or people who are here legally. Any person is entitled to due process. Any person is entitled to equal protection of the law. So when Abby Phillip says that this woman's opinion is perfectly valid, no, it's not. And here's a big problem I have with these panels like this, cable news, media in general. They platform this bullshit. They legitimize it. They make it seem like these fundamental constitutional rights are open to debate. They're not open to debate. Right? This is not 250 years ago. This is not a constitutional convention where we're debating this stuff for the first time. No, this stuff was settled a long time ago. The Constitution was ratified. It is the supreme law of the land. It is not open for debate. It is not subject to a poll. I don't give a damn if 50%, I don't give a damn if 100% of the American people think that due process should not apply to people who are here illegally or whoever the president, this dictator, says is here illegally. That's not how it works. So it really pisses me off that they even platform this point of view. It is not a legit point of view. It's not a valid opinion. And it leaves in the minds of the viewers this idea that it is. That it's just another political argument. And I'm on this side. There's this side and there's this side. And I'm perfectly valid. I'm perfectly justified, and my opinion is perfectly valid if I'm on the side of no one that the president says should not get due process is entitled to due process. It's just another legitimate point of view. No, it is not. And CNN and every other cable news and every other media platform should not be leaving it in the viewers and the reader's mind that it's a legitimate point of view. It's not. What's next? Right to remain silent? They don't have that either? If the president says they don't have it, then they don't have it? So should federal law enforcement be able to beat the hell out of somebody and make them talk because, hey, you don't have the right to remain silent? Where does it stop? If there's no due process, you can't even challenge any aspect of your arrest or your detention or your sentence. You know, we have capital punishment in this country, right? Even at the federal level. If we don't have due process, if people who Trump says are here illegally are not entitled to due process, then we can arrest them, we can detain them without a hearing, without a trial, and we could just pronounce their sentence. Trump can sentence them to death because they're not entitled to anything. They're not entitled to basic due process. They're not entitled to trials. They're not entitled to a jury of their peers. Nothing. You see where this goes? And it's not ridiculous to say this. This is the logical extension of this argument. This is what we're talking about. And let me tell you something. We don't stop this, that's going to be the next argument. All of these people who you see, these MAGA Republicans would be all for, if Donald Trump said, I am putting this person to death because they're a member of a gang, they're here illegally because I said so. No, they don't get a hearing. No, they don't get a trial. They're not entitled to any process whatsoever. And then you'd have this woman screeching on CNN,
They're not entitled to any process. They don't get a trial.
wow, that hurt my throat. Whew. How does this woman scream like that all the time? That's where we're going with this. Trump could just be judge, jury, and literally executioner. If the Constitution, if our bedrock constitutional protections do not apply, then nothing applies. Nothing. And we're not that far from it now. Trump is illegally ordering the kidnapping of people off the streets of America, and they're sent without due process or trial indefinitely to a prison camp, a concentration camp in El Salvador to die, to be there for the rest of their lives. We're already there, essentially. So how much of a step is it to get to pick up American citizens, sentence them to death without a trial? Hey, if Trump says they're not legal, then they don't even get to contest any part of that. They can't get to prove they're an American citizen. They don't get a trial. Nothing. That's where we're at. One final thing from the CNN panel. This detestable, oh, I hate this scumbag. What's his face? Scott Jennings. Okay, listen to this jerk off. This has to do with the issue of the Alien Enemies Act, because invocation of that act must be predicated on the United States being in a war. So here's what Scott Jennings thinks about that.
Individual district court judge is going to decide that? No, thank you.
Can I just ask a simple question? Who gets to decide whether the United States is at war?
The president, in my opinion. No. If we're being invaded,
actually,
I want the commander-in-chief to know.
Scott, no. It's actually the Congress.
This is like basic. Why are we even... Again, this is one of those things. No, it's not open for debate. Only Congress gets to declare war. You know, we think that because the president is commander-in-chief of the military, that he gets to decide when we go to war. He can just invade countries. Hell, if he wants to invade Canada to take it over, he could do that. Invade Panama, invade Greenland, go to war with these countries. No. He doesn't get to decide when the United States goes to war. When the framers of the Constitution were debating this, they said, okay, there needs to be a commander-in-chief. We need civilian leadership of the military. Okay, but we don't want a rogue military that is not answerable to the elected representatives of the people in any way, that are outside of politics, and they are just their own thing. They can do what they want. Because guess what? That's setting the stage for military dictatorship. You get a corrupt person as head of the military, he could just take over the civilian government and declare a military dictatorship. They didn't want that. They wanted civilian control of the military. So they made the president the commander-in-chief. But they didn't give him unilateral power to drag the United States into wars, so they gave that power to Congress. Congress has a lot of power over the military. It is up to Congress to create various branches of the military, to fund the military, defund the military, declare war. Congress has a lot of authority. And it's not even debatable who gets to declare war. Why don't we look at Article 1, Section 8, laying out the powers of Congress. This is a list of Congress's powers. There it is at the bottom of your screen there. To declare war. That's it. Who has the authority under our Constitution to declare war? Congress. Article 1. Right there. Article 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. Lists its powers. And right there in Section 8, the power to declare war. The president has no power to declare war. None. He may recommend that Congress declare war. He may go to Congress and say, hey, we need to go to war with these guys. But Congress can say, yeah, we declare war, now go get them. Or Congress could say, hell no, we're not going to war with them. You have no authority. And then, if he attacks that country, that is illegal. He should be impeached and removed from office for doing it, as violating separation of powers and illegally going to war against a country where war was not authorized by the Congress of the United States, because only Congress, despite what Scott Jennings says, can declare war. But I guess, nothing matters anymore. The Constitution doesn't matter. Laws don't matter. It's whatever the dear leader says. He is the law, as he has said on more than one occasion. He is the law. And that's what all these people apparently think. Guys, this is some sick and dangerous stuff. But again, as I said at the top of this video, should anyone be surprised? We elected a criminal. A man who literally tried to overthrow the republic on national TV. The entire freaking world saw it. But only this country is stupid enough to elect someone like that. And now, we are in a position where the President of the United States and virtually his entire party want the president to be able to arrest people, to detain them, to imprison them, to deport them to concentration camps in foreign countries without any due process of any kind. If he says you're here illegally, if he says you're a member of a gang, then you have no rights. All of this Constitution, none of it matters. If Trump says you don't have rights, you don't have rights. You don't even get to claim that you're an American citizen or that you're completely innocent. You get to offer no proof of anything. If Trump says you are not entitled to due process, then you're not. If Trump says you're guilty, then you are. If Trump says you should be put to death for your treason, then I guess we're going to put you to death for treason, even if you did nothing wrong. That's where we're headed. And I used the word treason, not flippantly. Trump uses the word treason. He literally has many times accused people he doesn't like of treason. Most recently, I think he accused Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs of treason. Treason is punishable by death. What if he decides that those two are traitors to the country and due process doesn't apply to anyone the president says is a traitor? And if you're not even entitled to basic due process, why would you be entitled to a trial? So what if Donald Trump wanted to have these people arrested and executed with no process and no trial? I bet this woman from CNN would be screeching that the president has the authority to do that.
They're traitors! They don't have any rights!
That didn't hurt. Anyway, you get the point. Good job, America. You voted for a dictator. He's doing dictator shit. Thanks for watching. Talk to you again soon.